This episode of Truth Table is brought to you by our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Get it where all books are sold.
Sisters, how y'all feel? Brothers, y'all all right? If this is your first time at Truth Table, welcome to the table. And if you've been sitting at the table with us all these years, we are so grateful that you have been listening to us through these years, and we are inviting you to partner with us and support our work at patreon.com/truthstable. Now pull up a chair and have a seat at the table with us. Hey y'all, welcome to Truth Table, Midwives of Culture for Grace and Truth. I'm Ekemini.
And I'm Christina.
This table is built by Black women and for Black women. So welcome to the table. See, how you doing, girl?
Listen, we're out here looking like bright lights. Looking like flowers.
Calling in spring.
Listen, you have to dress the part. And what that does is that speaks. Speaks to the environment. Come, flowers, come. So, yes, for those who are listening only, I am wearing yellow, which is one of my favorite colors.
Yeah,
and what are you wearing, Kimmy?
I am wearing a pink. I don't know. It's not muted pink. I think it's just a traditional pink, I guess.
It's a throwback. That shade reminds me of Alexis Devereaux on
Dynasty.
On Dynasty.
Wow, taking it back to
it's giving like an 80s pink. Wow. You know, like my mother was like an 80s, I remember my mother's 80s clothing, and that's what it reminds me of. Yeah. But so we're wearing yellow and pink, and I hope wherever you are listening to this, you're enjoying a beautiful and bright day.
Yeah, well. I guess we decided we need to wear something bright because we're about to talk about something real messy.
Well, it is.
We're about to talk about something real messy. And it is gossip and conspiracy theories on the table today. So we're going back to the basics. And why does this fit within the frame of going back to the basics? Is because scripture does expressly warn us in several places against gossip and slander. I'm going to read actually a couple of those, scriptures, and then we're going to get into it. Okay. So Ephesians 4:31 says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander," all the ands and
specific.
Listen, and
because we all think that we don't have one.
God didn't say that, so I'm good.
He's like, your issue. How about that?
Listen. Okay, I'll start again. Sorry, y'all. Ephesians 4:31. "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice, malicious gossip." Okay. And then let's see, Proverbs 20:19. He goes about as a slanderer, reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with the gossip. And there's many other scriptures that talk about how gossipers and slanderers won't inherit the kingdom of God. It's like, these things will actually send you. They'll send you to hell.
Well, what we say, what we do, the language we use, right? It really matters if you think about just the story of the fall, right? So Satan's is in the garden and is slandering, right? Is using some pieces of truth combined with ill motives and lies in order to tempt Adam and Eve into sin, and thus we have the fall, right? So if you think about that particular narrative, right, that story of the fall is one that is about slander.
Absolutely.
It's one that, and how powerful it is, right? Because we actually are influenced by words. People are like, nothing influences me. Oh my gosh. We are so deeply and easily manipulated and influenced by words and propaganda.
Yes.
And the devil is the original propagandist.
Yes, and absolutely. And also, gossip and even, slander is meant to also undermine the truth of what is true, right?
Sure.
So, because what the devil did was say, well, did God really say?
For sure.
So what he did was he planted a seed of doubt within Eve and then Adam, making them question what God said.
Right.
Like, oh, okay, maybe there is something that maybe God's holding back.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes that is how gossip, it begins to erode.
Yeah. Well, the purpose of slander is to attack the integrity of something or someone. Right. And so in that instance, right, we have the devil attempting to attack the integrity of God, the kind of the giver and keeper of what is true. And so I think that's to sober us and remind us of just how serious it is. What we entertain, what we say, what we delight in, what we take for granted, and just the power of language.
That's right. With. Yeah. So maybe it'll be helpful. We do believe in definitions around here at this table. So let's talk about the definition. I guess I'll look up the definition of slander as well too. But let me look up I have the definition of gossip here. It's casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. Okay,
right.
That's one.
Come on, fact check.
Definition. Of that too. Also trying to see if there's something here in Merriam-Webster. A rumor report of an intimate nature. Interesting. A chatty talk, the subject matter of gossip. It doesn't really give us a good definition there. Sorry, Merriam-Webster. I'm just saying. Let's see.
My.
A person who habitually reveals personal or sensational. See, I think that's the key there.
Some of it is about motives, right?
Yeah, it's about sensational facts about others. Okay, so let me also pull up slander.
Yeah, because in that instance of the gossip, it's actually not a lie, so it's not slander. Gossip can be sensational facts. It can be true, but the purpose again is to attack integrity. It's just an impure purpose.
That's right. Yeah. So slander, according to Merriam-Webster, the utterance of false charges or misrepresentations which defame and damage another's reputation.
Right.
Second definition, a false and defamatory oral statement about a person.
Yep.
So that's what slander. Those are kind of the differences. According to Merriam-Webster, conspiracy theory is a theory that explains an event or a set of circumstances as the result of a secret plot by usually powerful conspirators. Also, a theory asserting that a secret of great importance is being kept from the public. Yeah. So it's like this thing about secret knowledge, right? So, okay.
There is a particular attraction that people have to secret knowledge of being in the know and being special.
Since the beginning of time.
Yeah. People want to be in the know.
Yeah. And the first to know.
Yeah, the first to know. They want to be the one who communicates it. And it is a way of having, I think, a kind of a privileged position to have privileged information, even if it's not true. And also, it doesn't talk about that in the definitions that you said, but one of the functions of conspiracy theories is so that people don't actually reckon with the truth. So creating a conspiracy theory about why something is happening in the world is for some people more attractive and distracting than actually reckoning with like what's actually wrong and broken in the world. So it can be used as a bit of a scapegoat or a distraction instead of dealing with reality.
Yeah, it's something. I think it's something we have to be really aware of. I think in the age of YouTube, and social media, because I think a lot of these have morphed over the years, right? There were kind of like little stories growing up that we would hear. Yeah. Urban legends.
Yes. We can talk about some of those.
Remember the urban legends growing up? Remember remember theories about like why Aaliyah wore that swoop?
I don't remember a theory about why she
was because she has the lazy eyes.
Oh, I think I did hear that. Yes, she did not have the lazy.
And we didn't have social media, so I don't even know how we all held on to the.
Yeah, how did the information?
How did the story stay intact
from one person to the next?
I don't.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean now it makes sense that we have so much information. I think in air quotes. But at that point, we didn't have social media, so it really was like playing telephone.
And somehow,
from one person
all
to
of
the next.
these things, they stayed intact.
Across states.
Among the cousins.
Gossip is really powerful. When you think about the integrity of the gossip, when you play telephone, the whole point of telephone is that by the time you get to the midpoint or the end, it's a completely different message. But, there's something about gossip and the way that it, I think, enlivens people. And it gets all that... the brain, neurotransmitters activated. It's a drug. And people even preserve the information. That's why even when we're playing telephone and going from one place to the next, the message actually still is intact. That's why in California, you got the same urban legend that I got in Baltimore. That's wild.
So wild.
That is wild.
It is. It is wild. So anyway, this thing comes from, when we were kids. You were kids. When I think about gossip, I think about slander and conspiracy theories, particularly in junior high, maybe high school, and family stuff. I think there was a lot of our chatter surrounded, gossip, in high school and stuff. And I think a lot of that was insecurities, right?
Oh, for sure.
Being insecure, little girl.
The adult version does that. I mean, like the adults.
Adults too. It's rooted in that. Absolutely rooted in that. But I think that was a big thing for me, like in high school, right? That was much more even than now. For me, I'm not one that really follows. I don't really follow celebrities. It's not. That's never really been my jam. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you following celebrities. I'm just not. I've never really been into like the Us Weeklies and and the National Enquirer.
Tabloids, you mean?
Yeah, tabloids. Remember in the 90s and that.
The National Enquirer.
Before you had, all these different accounts, Hollywood Unlocked.
Yeah, you're at the grocery store and that's what's there.
I was never, never really into that. So I never really followed, celebrity stuff like that. And so I think in high school and stuff like that, we would, have a typical gossipy chatter, and when I look back on that, I was like, man, why was I so entertained by that? Was, because I was insecure, right? And so when you're insecure, you're, at least for me, it was like you made yourself feel better by talking about another person.
Oh, for sure.
And by identifying their flaws and their things, their whatever, right? Because we judge people according to the way we judge ourselves too, honestly. It's a projection of our own mess.
Well, specs and planks, right?
Specs and planks, But now I think that in this day and age, we have to be more aware of the way that gossip has evolved. In that there's accounts now, like there's Shade Room, there's Hollywood Unlocked, there's so many other different accounts, and then there's interviews with people that are divulging secrets, right?
Hello. It's big business.
Right? Yeah, I mean, so the Cat Williams interview went viral, over 50 million.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yes. There are more people who watch Cat Williams' interview than voted for any specific political candidate in the last presidential election, right? So if you if you think about that, like what activates us, what feels like it's life-giving to us, what would motivate us, right? And that's just there's a lot to learn, I think, in that.
There is a lot to learn. And so I just think it's interesting. I think we wanted to bring it to the fore too, because I do think that there is a way in which we can churchify slander and gossip. And I've seen this, for sure. People level charges against people, particularly say like celebrities. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. We have to substantiate that claim or else it's slander. Because if you cannot, then you're bearing a false witness. First of all, that's a violation, of God's commandment. But also, and then you'll say you're doing it and then you do it in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
I think we got to be careful. With that. And so I wonder, and we can get deeper into this in our commercial break, but just talking about the ways in which we can more wisely discern, gossip when we hear slander, when we're giving into it. And then we'll get into conspiracy theories too. So the cousins, my gosh.
Cousins of slander and
gossip. Yes. And so we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we are going to be back here at the table talking about gossip, slander, and conspiracy theories.
My.
Our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation, is making waves and shifting culture. I closed this book feeling like I had just partaken in a multi-course meal, filled with grace and the courage to carry on. And I believe you'll finish this book feeling the same way. Morgan Harper Nichols, artist and poet. Buy Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation at our website or wherever books are sold.
And we are back at the table talking about gossip, slander, and conspiracy theories. My. The triple whammy.
Lions, tigers, and bears.
Oh, my.
Exactly, right. Well,
how are some ways that we get caught unawares that we might be entangled? Because I think it's harder to discern it now than maybe back when you're picking up a tabloid, right? Or you're gossiping in the schoolyard or amongst family. You know what I mean?
Well, the benefit of having a magazine called the National Enquirer is that if as you purchase it and buy it, like that you are partaking in the beverage of slander. Like it, right? Like it. Now I think there are ways in which we have that it's not quite as blatant. And so we're not necessarily picking up the National Enquirer, but we're still engaging and looking at, tweets and posts online as if it's been vetted and it's accurate information.
Yeah, that's right.
Like there's no fact checking that's happening. We have major news networks, right? That their entire brand is selling people what they want to hear versus actually giving them the truth. The most popular news network is Fox.
Yeah.
Fox is the most popular news network across the board for all people groups in the United States.
So many of our news networks are not as, you know what I mean? As sound as they once were. Too. Yeah. So that's also not helpful.
Well, I raised Fox because in the recent Tucker Carlson case, one of the things that Fox admitted in the way they kind of attempted to defend his show was to say like, well, he's not really giving the news. So what he's doing is not news. So they articulated. Now they admitted that. If you're open to hearing them admit that, then you would know that. But I would imagine that the people who stick with Fox and who get their news from it, that's not information that they are going to be inclined to even open themselves up to receiving. Yeah. But even they admitted that as their justification for saying that, we don't have to worry about him being accurate.
That's right.
And so again, when we have so many things available to us, like you can pick the news source you want, you can pick the truth that you want to hear.
Yeah. You can
my truth and your truth, and what is truth, right? Mm-hmm. And so there are consequences, I think, for that type of thinking, because there are some things that need to be objectively true. Like we need to know some things.
Jesus is the truth.
We need objectivity.
Yeah,
we need objectivity. And unfortunately, because we can buy what we want to hear, and we can just gravitate to what we want to hear. That's what most of us do, and that's all of us. I mean,
that's true.
People are like, "Don't bring me no bad news." Like we're drawn to what we want to hear, what enlivens us, and so I begin to think about what are some of the popular conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah,
that are happening right now.
Even before you go there, when you brought up the point about the news, so what came to mind about different is TMZ.
Oh,
so for me, TMZ was always just This Hollywood gossip news, I don't pay attention to TMZ. But when they were the first to break Michael Jackson's death, I was like, oh my gosh, Lord have mercy, how did they got that right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, huh.
Yeah. The pictures they got and the video clips they got, I would imagine those were real things that they were able to take in.
That to me was a trip. And so I think in some ways, the tricky part about gossip is that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes there is some truth to it. And sometimes conspiracy theories do be right. But sometimes, what's the motive behind it? Yeah. What is the salaciousness? I think we have to be on guard about that. What's the motivation for some of your whoever pick your favorite popular Christian is? What's their motivation also for calling out whoever they're calling out? You know what I mean? You have to also think about that. What do they stand to gain?
Yeah.
By that.
And conflict is big business, right? So there's an entire segment of, you think about just the history of hip hop, right? So there's a point in the narrative in the story, not even at a point, in the very beginnings of hip hop is about battle, right?
Yeah.
And it's an artistic battle, right? But that grows over time into becoming, okay, now I've got a conflict with this person. So we got two female rappers. And what is going to help us to generate buzz around both of them? Well, a real or a scripted conflict, right? Because that gets people's attention. They start to kind of unionize around one of the particular artists, right? And they like, that's my person. No, this is my person, right? And so that's all strategic. People do the same thing with dating. People stage out dating relationships, right? Because people love a love story and they love a conflict. Some of the biggest pop records in the last 10 to 20 years are because someone had a broken heart, or at least that's the story they've told us.
I'm going down.
And they wrote an entire record about it, and we have connected with it, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's true, I imagine, and sometimes that's a really good story.
Yeah.
And so I think there is something to be said about both gossip and capitalism. The way in which it gets us leaned in and our pockets open, right? But we see that certainly both in hip hop and in the music industry, kind of the storytelling. We want a narrative.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not, we want a story. We are attracted to stories. Like that's one of the distinctions of humans, is not just like our conscience, but we deal in story. It's kind of how we're made and designed, right? And so whether the story is true or false, we have an attraction to a story.
That's true. We do. You're right.
So I've got some interesting stories here.
Stories abound. Oh boy.
And as I talk about these, I would love for you to think about what might have been some stories, if you've heard this one, or if you have others that you can reflect on from many moons ago, or maybe like a moon ago, right? Let's see. So the first one, and this is through Teen Vogue, they had an article where they highlighted pop culture conspiracies.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy. Okay.
The first one is Taylor Swift is working with the NFL.
Oh, boy.
Which is fascinating to me.
I did not hear this one, but
yeah.
I know that people. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's the whole thing. The whole thing is that she's working with them. It's a plot, I think, in many ways. One, to get women to watch the NFL, I guess,
and they are now. They because it's Swift. The Swifties are now.
The Swifties
are footballies.
Listen. I don't want to offend any of the people.
Are, yeah.
So that's part of it. That's a conspiracy theory. Obviously, there's one connected to that one too, about Taylor Swift working for the Democrats, and
I know they said that
things. She needs to work harder. We're in political crisis
job,
right now.
So I don't know.
We're in political crisis.
I don't know if that's working out.
Exactly. So that's one of them. They're always the ones about there's a celebrity who either is really dead and now they've been cloned, or they died, but they're really actually alive.
Oh, that reminds me. Yeah, people that claim that Jamie Foxx was cloned.
Yes.
I remember hearing that. I was like, yo.
Well, then that movie came out about, a clone.
Oh gosh, they cloned Tyrone or something.
Yeah, I don't think that helped. I feel like that
did not help.
That got in the sauce.
That did not help. The timing of that was not a good thing.
Yeah, and then of course Tupac.
Oh my goodness, I remember that Tupac's still alive.
Yeah, that he's in Cuba.
He's in Cuba, right?
Specifically, a very specific location.
I haven't heard it too much anymore. But
yeah, well, it's a problem.
Yeah, I haven't heard but it was really heavy again, especially in Cali.
Yeah. Well, and some people
we're going through,
and some people like their social contribution, like their pop culture contribution, is just so big, right? And so I have, I was a teenager during the era of Tupac. I remember where I was when I learned that he died.
I was a freshman in
remember
high school.
It really, really well.
I was at home. Yeah.
And all of that to say, maybe older than a teenager, but all of that to say that there are people who long for certain people to be alive. And so sometimes you get this piece of like, no, they really are, because they're bigger than life. They really are alive. Elvis is alive. Tupac is alive. Whenever that happens, I often think about people's family members.
I know.
Like there's from a family member standpoint, there's just such a cruelty.
It's hard. Yeah.
I think in that,
Yeah.
Then you have ones about, conspiracy theories like Princess Diana's death was no accident.
Right. Well,
I mean, sometimes we're like,
I don't know. I mean, after watching The Crown, I don't know.
I mean, I'm
just saying.
I don't know. I don't know. As you can see, this is how these conspiracy theories work. And I was like, I don't know.
Y'all, we're still in process, y'all.
Listen.
The Lord is yet working
God rest his soul. For sure. This is the big one. This is number 4 on their list. Okay. Beyonce and Jay-Z are Illuminati leaders.
Okay, well.
I mean, I don't know. Although I will say in full disclosure, I'm not really, let me say this.
Well,
I feel, so I know from a pop culture standpoint, what the Illuminati is supposed to be, like Hollywood secret society, and people have to do things to get I feel
rituals.
I feel like I get a little bit of that. I really am not. I'm not well versed enough in my Illuminati
knowledge,
theology, or Illuminology.
To know if they're the leaders.
Yeah, I don't know enough. But if there were leaders of said Illuminati, I would think that 2 billionaires would be reasonable candidates, because they are rich.
This episode is so hilarious and ridiculous, because you can see we are in process, y'all. Listen,
I don't know.
Here's the thing. I remember being knee deep in Illuminati conspiracies.
Really?
I remember this.
Talk about it. You got a master's degree in Illuminati.
But I remember very early on in my walk, YouTube was kind of at its avid. I don't know. I don't know actually when don't let me get the line. But I'm just like, it was like YouTube wasn't quite what it is now.
Don't let me
but it also was a force. Let me say it that way.
It's a force.
So now. I just remember kind of like people sending, videos about the Illuminati and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I was like, okay. And I did kind of eat it up hook, line, and sinker. I was like,
well, yeah.
there are dark forces in this world.
Well, that's true.
So, there are.
I mean,
and so I used to believe it. And then I don't know. And then one year I was like, what? I was like, and then for some, I can't tell you the turning point why I was like, I just don't believe this stuff anymore. Yeah. Maybe I started beginning to mature. I'm not suggesting that people that do believe this are not mature, but my formation was such that I just released that. I just didn't believe it anymore.
Well, also our taste buds. I was gonna say our taste buds can change too. Oh, Cat Williams.
I was like, but then Cat Williams did start talking. I was like, wait a minute now. This thing, is this really real? I was like, wait a minute.
Well,
listen, 2023 was confirming some conspiracies. Let me just say. So listen, the U.S. government had a congressional hearing.
Okay, are you talking about the aliens?
Yes, because I couldn't believe it. Because I was like, wait a minute, I feel like we haven't spent enough time on this in 2023.
Well, because we have so many other pressing matters.
But they did. I mean, there were congressional leaders that actually testified that we have non-human biologics in our possession. I was like, well, I'm sorry, what?
I told you those.
Are you telling me the aliens are real? I
told you those were cats. Those were cats.
She says they're cats.
Cats. They're animals. That's a non-human biologic.
Like, I did not know. I was like, wow. I always thought that was are you telling me that there are aliens? I was like, I watched that whole press conference. I was like, oh my gosh.
And see, people are going to Google right now.
Yeah, I watched it. I actually watched the press hearing. Republicans and Democrats were actually unified on this. I was like, whoa, this has to be.
They were non-unified on the non-human.
This was a legitimate
biologics.
It was on C-SPAN. I was like, man. I was fascinated. I was like, my God, 2023, proving the conspiracy theorists right. Well, that was not on my bingo card.
That's because stuff is so wild. I mean, the real world, I think, is wild enough that we don't have to make up things. I feel like reality is wild. The other thing, there are times when there are conspiracy theories that are designed to not reckon with reality, to not reckon with people's hurt and pain and injustice. So, like one of the most enduring conspiracy theories is the myth that the Holocaust is not true.
Anti-Semitic,
right?
You gotta call it.
So evil. And I was mentioning to you earlier that I remember, I guess maybe high school or middle school, touring the Holocaust Museum with my classmates. And one of the first scenes is a room that you go into. I'm not sure if it's still like this, was many years ago, but were these huge wall-sized photographs of people who were emaciated. They were dying in concentration camps. And one of the things that struck me is the bodies were so frail that we couldn't really discern, at least aesthetically, a sense of gender. And then they told us, those are women. And so you would not have known, you would not have been able to tell because the bodies were so depleted. And there was an older man behind me, and I'll never forget it, who basically kind of nudged his wife and was like, I guess this is for real. Like, I guess this is true. And anyway, all that to say is incredibly disturbing, but that myth still is moving through this world. And I think about, the Tiki Torch Nazis in Charlottesville, right? As they are marching around talking about Jews will not replace us, right? So that lineage, that connection point.
Think about the Emmanuel 9.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but that myth, right? They matter.
Yes.
They matter because when you combine it with power or access to weapons, then people lose their lives.
That's right.
People lose their lives over these ideas. So there's more than just, some of the stuff seems kind of quirky, funny, weird.
Well, January 6th, hello, that was rooted in conspiracy.
Yeah.
That the election was stolen. That is a lie.
Yeah.
It was not.
Well, I would say that's twofold. One, it was conspiracy that provoked it to happen. Mm-hmm. But also there are people who have already created a narrative that didn't happen either. That January 6th
that's true.
Did not happen. Just like folks who say things like, well, 9/11. That's true. That did not happen, right? Yeah, so it is and no one actually, no one has been in outer space. So there are all kinds of
a lot of stuff.
There's lots of moments here. There's lots of moments here. So what are you thinking in terms of? And here's another one right here. Aliens built the Egyptian pyramids. Right?
My God!
Let me say the aliens are getting busy.
The aliens are busy.
They're getting busy.
Y'all putting them to work.
Listen, the flat Earth theory. We've got those. We've got now the CIA and JFK's assassination. Now, by the way, when you say CIA and FBI, when we're talking about the civil rights movement, I'm like, I think anything is possible. So, but again, I'm gonna hold out on that until they unlock the vault. So some of these I'm like, I don't know. I I'm waiting for more evidence. I'm waiting for more evidence to disprove my anxieties. But how should we we know how we're rolling as humans. How should we as believers who ought to love the truth, capital T truth, and want to speak the truth and be around it, how ought we to self-examine as we think about conspiracies and gossip?
Yeah. Well, I think self-examination, I think the best form of self-examination we can do is by submitting this is why prayer is really important, right? Confession of sin and being the ones that we know of, because there's sins that we commit that we don't know of, right? Sins of omission, right? But the sins of commission, the ones that we have committed, the ones that we know of, giving that to the Lord and going, Lord, search my heart. I'm a little too entertained by this. Or I'm really stuck on this. Like, you know what I mean? And like, just search me. And I promise you the Spirit will search you. Remember, I told you last fall. So, or in 2023, in 2024 is tripping. These are some wild years. But the end of 2023, we really went out with a bang. Yeah. There was just a lot going on in our community. And so a lot of revelations, exposures. And I was like, my God. Mm-hmm. And I cannot stand injustice of any form. So if I find out somebody's a celebrity or somebody of big stature in our community is abusing, there's claims of abuse or lawsuits about that or anything, I'm like, what? Like I snap into Avenger mode. Where's my laptop? I need to
listen. It's that Kermit meme that's moving quickly on the keys. That's right.
My God, there was a report about. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Where have I been? Like, oh my God. Well, minding my business.
But also with the emotional energy as if it is a validated truth.
Right. Yes.
You know, that's the thing about it. Like when we hear the statement without even the evidence. The emotions match it as if it is
for me, it's the law. If there's a lawsuit, then I'm like, wait a minute now. Yeah. I was like, no, because now this is legal. There's something true here. This is real.
As if people do not have false lawsuits.
All of a sudden, I turn into Esquire.
Listen, exactly.
And I'll tell you, I told Christina this. Yeah, I do believe in confessing to other people. But then also, I did. I was kind of doing it. And I remember the Spirit telling me, like, you need to chill. I don't need your help bringing about the justice that is due. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just, you chill. Right. Like, you need to step away. And I was like, okay. And so anyway, so all that to say, I do think it's important to really continually, we're in process. We're in process. I'm just telling y'all the truth.
Yeah.
This is why I'll be like, what is happening?
Yeah.
To be under the jail. And so, but I'm bringing it to the Lord. I'm bringing it to trusted friends as well. And the Spirit really does convict and turn and change. Mm-hmm. And then when there's a new development, I go like, okay, Holy Ghost, you don't need my help. You don't need my help. My investigation.
God, you really do uphold the cosmos.
You really do. Okay, God. I'm just going to pray. And that really was the directive. It was like, chill, pray. Like, you know what I mean? Don't really fall back and pray. And that is what I have been doing, and I am committed to do it. So that for me is huge and helpful. So for me, I don't follow a lot of, I don't follow service, but if I see something, I'm like, what? I really do not, I can't stand injustice. Yeah. So I really have a very strong aversion, to it. And so I get invested. And so I really do get invested in like, they need to go away.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
pay for the consequences. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, our credibility. Let me start with this. Mm-hmm. I think because I have a background as a trauma therapist, I recognize the way that that going for the justice, which I'm very pro justice too, that we can go for justice and in the name of justice, we can actually miss the moment of empathy towards the person who's suffering. So in other words, like when I think about some of the stories that hit, I'm often, and again, this is through training and experience, I'm thinking about, yes, justice needs to happen, restraint needs to happen on this side, but where are the survivors? What's going on there? And I think we have to sometimes be compelled we have to discipline ourselves to do that, because it is easy for us to actually forget, they're not as salacious.
That's right.
But to forget who was in pain and who was involved in that too. So I think that's something I developed over time, because I sat in rooms with survivors of all kinds of unimaginable abuse, right?
That's right.
And so that, I think that's one piece of it. I think the other thing I would say too is that, their reputations are just really hard to build.
Oh, yes.
They're really hard to build, and they're just hard. They're hard to build. It is very easy to have a reputation fall based on one tweet. One tweet. And I think I have a sensitivity to that because as believers, we're witnesses, and in order to be an effective witness, you have to have credibility.
You have to. And
so it matters how we live.
I do not play by that.
But it also matters how we talk about other people. So there are people who I know in my mind are like wrong.
Even people that have harmed us.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There are people I know who are wrong. They're wrong as the day is long. They're wrong. And I actually am not a person that's like closeted about wrong. Like if I think you've done me wrong or you've done something wrong, I will call you. There are people who might be listening right now like, yeah, she called me. Like I will call you on the phone. I will send you an email. Mm-hmm. I'm more likely to directly tell you what my concern is than ever tweet about it. Mm-hmm. Like that's just not, and there's a couple of reasons why. One reason is because I would want someone to call me
give you that
if they had a concern because it may not be true. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And also, I do think we have to give people room. We give people room or space to repent.
Yeah.
Now I'm not talking about committing a crime.
Leave room for grace.
I'm gonna give you room for grace, and I'm gonna call the police. Yeah. But I do think there's a space to be able to try to handle both of those things. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're a person who has had people make caricatures of you, who have told you who you are, I think you have a greater sensitivity to that. And as a person who knows personally,
I know what it means.
Yeah,
we know what it means.
Oh, for sure.
Gossiped about it.
So there's a sense in which it's like when Scripture calls us to judge in the way that we would want to be judged. Now, it doesn't say don't judge. That's what people used to say. Like the scripture say, don't judge nobody. I don't know where that text is. That's just not what it says. It says that the way you judge, because we're always judging and discerning. We need to in order to live. But the way that we judge, we deal with people the way that we would want to be dealt with. And I think that can help to give us a holy muzzle when we and again, we just need work on it. We need to be called out. There are times when I might be in the midst of gossiping and I have to have a light bulb moment of like, this has moved from sharing facts to sharing facts for the sake of getting a buzz.
Yeah.
Now that's salaciousness.
You do get a high.
Mm-hmm. You do get a high.
Yeah, the script probably talks about how it goes down like a morsel.
Yeah, it's like a chocolate treat or whatever your favorite dessert is. That is what gossip feels like going down. It entices you.
But it poisons you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And it also causes you to begin to dehumanize people because they become a form of entertainment to you that you mock.
I think that in addition to it, feeling good or tasting good going down, eventually it corrodes us. It corrodes our soul. Yeah. I think this is why scripture warns us against it because it can actually send us to hell. That's one thing that's important. Two, it corrupts our reputation too. If you are known as that, that's what you do. Woo, that's that's just
that's your brand.
That's your brand. That's a shaky, reputation. And you show yourself to be not a trustworthy person, and not to have a good and solid, reputation. And I don't think that definitely should not be the case for Christians. And we know of people that have built brands on gossip. I guess in the church and outside the church,
for sure.
Yeah, in the church and outside the church. And then when they fall on hard times, people do not have the level of empathy that they should for that person because they maybe were harmed.
Oh, for sure.
By that person, by what they said, or they know other people that have been harmed, or they just simply didn't like the way that the person moved.
Yeah.
When they were living high on the hog.
Yeah.
If you will. And so I think we got to be careful, about building that because, we really do reap what we sow. God is good and gracious and merciful to us, but we do reap the consequences of the things that we sow in this world and in different places. Yeah. So I think we have to be careful, about that.
I mean, you've heard me say this many times that what entertains us reveals us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. Mm-hmm.
And it does communicate something about us, like who we are at our core, like what gives us a high, like what we find ourselves drawn to, the conversations that we have. And it holds up a mirror, which I think is that can be helpful for us to do a bit of a gut check. How much time am I spending talking about other people in ways that I would not want them to hear? How many times have I passed on information that was not validated, but I shared it with my whole chest like it was true?
Yeah.
How many times have I let an unfounded accusation of someone else, right? Unfounded meaning that it has not been vetted or proven, right? I don't have evidence that it's true or reasonably true, right? As best as we can know. And how many times have I shared that or passed that on to other people, or let that information cause me to justify being cold or avoidant or unloving towards that person?
Yep. Or how many times have you received, a report about somebody and legitimate, report, but it went too far, right? Yeah. And then it was it. I didn't need to know that. I didn't need to know who this person was dating, or I didn't need to know whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? Intimate detail. I'm just throwing that out.
People start doing the math. I mean, sometimes we have an interesting what I call like a math messiness, right? If someone's telling a story about like being in a relationship and that maybe they have a child, and people are start doing math to figure out, well, when in their relationship did they have this child? Like those, like when our brains start going to a place of trying to get evidence that justifies us in saying something negative or unkind about a person. Yeah. And I think that is, that's an area that we're all going to be growing in.
Yeah. And I think we have to check that. For some reason, bitterness came to mind. I think you have to be, I think we always got to be mindful about bitterness. I think it can happen so subtly.
Oh, for sure.
And I do know, and I do believe a lot of gossip is actually rooted in some discontent, insecurity, and I'd say and even fear. Bitterness and fear, and some bitterness. I don't want to say all, but I do think we have to think about that, be cognizant about that, and be searching, going to the Lord to have the Spirit really search us, on that, because bitterness is so, I don't know, it's just so subtle, and you can, before you know it, it's like, ooh, you're brittle.
Yeah.
You're hard.
Well, and most people, when we are bitter, we're not consciously saying that about ourselves.
No, I don't know. A bitter person is like, I'm bitter.
Yeah, like, now when you think about what is it, the passage, when you think about the story of Ruth and Naomi. Right?
Oh yeah, call me bitter. Yeah, my name is Mara. My name is Mara. Don't call me Naomi. My name is Mara.
I really appreciate that. She's like, look, I've lost all my sons. I have no spouse. I'm in this patriarchal society. How are we going to eat? What's going to happen? I got these daughter-in-laws. She's like, look at here, call me bitter.
Call me bitter.
And so most of us aren't real enough.
The only person that I know
we need to be real like Naomi. We need to be like, call me.
Be like Naomi.
Call me bitter. But here's the thing. We need to call ourselves bitter if that's the case. We need to tell the truth on ourselves, because the bitter will break. And in addition to that, the bitter will also justify. Mm-hmm. We will justify our sin. Now, here's the thing. When people sin against us, that's when we're in one of the most tempting positions.
Very vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, we've legitimately been sinned against, right? Yes. And so someone maybe has gossiped about us. Someone may have slandered us. Yeah. And so the temptation is very real to be like, I'm going to give you the same medicine
get you back.
that you gave me.
I'm going to go do a whole Twitter thread.
Exactly. But there is nothing, there's nothing holy about that. There's nothing glorious and beautiful about becoming the thing that hurt you.
Yeah, that's right.
There's just nothing beautiful or honorable about that. So we know that's not the Jesus way. The Jesus way is, while we were yet sinners, while we were enemies of God, Christ died for us. It is a love that extends, that doesn't say like, are you worthy of this love? No, the love extends because God is love.
I mean, the Jesus way is that Jesus was reviled, right. and mocked, and he did not return slander, reviling back, I mean, the Jesus way is also remembering that God is our avenger. Deuteronomy reminds us that he will repay. Yeah. It's like resting in.
That's a position of faith. You have to have faith. You gotta
believe that God will really defend
you. You have to have faith to release, to put the debt in God's hands. That's an act. That's one of the practical implications of forgiveness. It's not that what happened goes away into the abyss. We don't have the capacity to just make memories just go away into the abyss. But it is a way of saying that the one who has the power and the purity to avenge this, I'm going to take this debt and put this into God's hands. And I think that actually frees us up then to uproot that root of bitterness and to be mindful of the way that we communicate about our enemy, because Scripture calls us to bless and to not curse.
Yeah. Even Jude, I mean, even there's a particular way you even talk about the devil, which is a trip.
Yeah.
It was like, dang. So it really matters how we talk about our enemies. It talks about how it matters how we talk about friends. It talks about matters how we talk about neighbors. It matters how we talk about strangers.
It matters how we talk about God.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
As we listen, our own internal dialogue about how we describe ourselves, but the way that really shapes
that too. Yeah.
From a cognitive standpoint, our emotions, the narrative that we have in our own heads about our identity. We can gossip and slander ourselves instead of feeding to ourselves the truth about who we are, right?
Yes.
And obviously in the garden, going full circle back to the beginning of our conversation, that was gossip about the character of God.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So y'all, gossip, slander, conspiracy theories.
My oh my.
Let's resist by the Spirit. Let's not resist the Spirit.
Come on.
By indulging it. Let's resist the pull, the temptation. Let's be discerning.
Let's admit it.
Let's admit it. Let's confess it, and bring it to the Lord, and really begin to be discerning and wise people that, and try to practically really try to rid it out of our lives. Let's be mindful of what accounts we're following. What I mean? Just what we're entertaining. Let's just be mindful of all the things of the company we keep. Yeah. That matters too. So let's try to be, let's grow. Let's grow together, y'all, as we're going back to the basics.
And the point about, even when you just raised this, and as we go down close, we're going to see, as we try to uproot bitterness and gossip in our lives, we're going to see what is at the center of friendships and relationships that we have.
Listen,
can your friendships with your so-called Christian friends, can they survive? Can they exist if you get rid of gossip? Do you have something to talk about? Do you feel good about yourselves and your friendship if it's not rooted on thinking that you're better than or entitled to denigrate someone else? And that'll be a real test. That will be a real test.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a good one. So, well, thank you, sister.
Thank you.
We went there.
Thank y'all today.
And thank y'all for taking a seat at the table with us. Please, let's keep the conversation going. Please share your thoughts about this episode. Gossip, slander, conspiracy theories. Going back to the basics.
Come on.
You can email us your thoughts at asktruthstable@gmail.com. You can tweet us your thoughts on X, formerly Twitter. Or you can put it in the comments on Instagram or in the DMs. And Black women, you can join our Facebook Black Women's Discipleship group. Answer the entry questions. That's join us so that we can talk about all this and so much more. We'd love to have you join us. Thank you so much for taking a seat at the table with us this time. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Truth Table. Bye, y'all.